For you guys, did the Niagara IceDogs do what you expected them to do with this draft, Steve?
Yeah, I think they did. And when we took a look at the IceDogs draft and what they needed, they seem to have a little bit more depth at defense and goaltending than in terms of forwards. And so I think their job was made a little bit easier when North Bay took Ty Nelson as the first pick overall, because he's an awfully tantalizing prospect to have on your team. But that would have made the IceDogs really loaded up with young defensemen. So I was looking at the IceDogs draft skill and to draft size, and they did that. I'm a big believer in the first round. You don't draft for need; you draft best player available at that point. And I think Pano Fimis fits that bill. From everything that I've read, from what scouts have said, he has the potential to be an elite level talent. And then the IceDogs kind of went for a little bit of size in their top 3 rounds, and I think that's what they needed to address. So I wasn't really surprised. Color me mildly surprised. Maybe they didn't take a goaltender at any point in the draft, but overall, it went as I expected it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it kind of went as quite a bit as I expected. I think they went a little bit heavier up front than I even anticipated. I knew it would be a forward-heavy draft for this Niagara team, but I didn't think they'd go to that extreme. They certainly, we're talking over double digits in terms of forwards drafted, and obviously the crown jewel of that being Pano Fimis, who, quite frankly, outside of Adam Fantilli, was probably the best forward available. And quite frankly, he's a right shot. He's a centerman. He skates well. He's defensively responsible, and he's a leader. If you check the boxes on things that you like in a hockey player, he's certainly checking a lot of them. So I can't blame the Burks for jumping all over that when the opportunity presented itself.
The other thing that struck me, Darren and Matt, was the IceDogs going for younger siblings of established OHL players. I mean, they drafted Ryan Struthers, who I believe is the younger brother of Matt Struthers, Zachariah Wisdom, the younger brother of Kingston's Zaid Wisdom, and Ilya Chmielewski a little bit later on in the draft, the younger brother of Sasha Chmielewski, who really made his trade, and played in Ottawa. So that was something, and I like that too. I like having guys who are younger siblings of people who played in the league because they have an idea of what to expect in the league.
Now, guys, one of the big questions facing this team going forward will be, do they continue to draft players with the multitude of picks they have, or do they start to sprinkle those picks into the trade market and maybe try and speed up this rebuild a little bit? Steve, which direction do you think they're going to go?
I'd like to see them speed up the rebuild a little bit, but I don't want to see them speed it up too much. So sprinkling and finding that fine line between kind of being a more go for it team and a team that's building slowly, I think is what the IceDogs have to find. There are holes that this team needs to fill. I do still believe, even though they have 4 goaltenders with OHL experience, they may need to address the goaltending situation. You don't know how Tucker Tynan is going to come back. You saw Christian Spralia being consistent. The youth of Josh Rosenzweig came shining through when he played. And Andrew McLean at times, he was a battler, he was a gamer, but he looked a little bit shell-shocked. And I'd like to see the IceDogs get a little veteran toughness as well addressed, maybe through the overage position or in other places. So, yeah, I'd like to see them spend some of those draft picks, not obviously empty the cupboard, but spend some of those draft picks just upgrading certain positions to be a little bit more competitive.
See, now, if you look at the IceDogs lineup from my perspective right now, I look at it and I think, yeah, we're going to spend some prospects. You have to, or draft picks, sorry, you have to spend some of those draft picks. But I want to see them bring in some overage guys. I don't want them to bring in, any overage defensemen. They've already got their, 6, 7 guys back there. They've got a high draft pick for the import draft, so you can go out, you can get an impact forward there. Bring in a couple away forwards just to insulate some of these younger guys that you've drafted that are going to be in your lineup next year. And then kind of go from there, because next year you're not winning anything anyway. You probably have enough if you hit on your import pick, you get the right OA forwards in, you've got enough to make the playoffs, you're back in the playoffs, take that step, gain that experience. Because really, in 2 years, when these 17-year-olds on defense are 19 years old, that's when you're going to make your run. And you've got the ability to sustain that for a couple of years as well. So for me, I'm saying spend a couple of them, but you don't have to pay high-end picks or anything like that to acquire a couple overagers, because there's going to be a lot of them in the league, as there always is. So spend wisely, augment, but save it for a rainy day, because you're going to need them later on.
Is it important for the Ice Dogs to really hit a home run with their import pick? We're going to assume that they only pick once with this import draft. Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Darren. They're going to keep Giancarlo Shanton as one of those building blocks on defense, and really they have a chance to get a high-end forward. You could see the difference that Jan Yannick made with the Hamilton Bulldogs, say, for example, when he played. So if you get that high-end import guy, you get him to report to your team, and you get him on the top six. And I think the Ice Dogs could offer that to an overage to an import forward, a chance to play in the top six and get meaningful special teams minutes. You really do have to do well with this. You're not often going to get a top pick in the import draft the way the Ice Dogs have. You're not going to get Andrei Svechnikov, I don't think, that kind of high-end talent, but you do have a guy who could step in your top six, and that could potentially help the Ice Dogs, who tended to have gone Switzerland, Denmark, Italy. They have occasionally gone to Russia. They really have stayed away from Sweden and Finland for the most part when it comes to imports. So, it'll be interesting to see which country they kind of take a look at.
From my perspective, it's imperative that they absolutely hit a home run on this import pick, simply because you've got a lot of ice time available. If you can get a guy that's 17 years old in his draft year to come over, you've got a ton of ice time available to him, but he's 17 as well. So you can also build with that guy. You don't want necessarily the high-end guy anyway that's going to come, play for a year, and then potentially play in the NHL. You want a guy that's going to be here for 2-3 years for your build, right? So for me, it's not even necessarily about hitting the home run in terms of the big name, but a guy that's going to be here for 2-3 years, contribute offensively, take advantage of the ice time, play in your top six, but again, be part of your program, not just a one-stop deal like an Andrei Svechnikov was.